Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, the original K-State sports show. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another edition of the PowerCat Podcast. Fitz and Gills, as always, and today we're joined by Jon Grove, one of our remarkable, incredible, amazing student staff writers. They're fantastic. Well, Grant's okay. John's fantastic.
His IQ is a little bit low. I don't know if we put it up to par, if I'm being completely honest.
I kind of knew that when Grant said, I played football, and he was a kicker. And I'm like, dude, you were a kicker.
Yeah, that's what we call a glorified soccer player.
As they all say, kickers are the fastest ones to catch.
On the web for glorified soccer player.
They're always listening.
What was that?
He played soccer.
Gary just went off.
Yeah, my mic went off during the show the other night. Hey, don't be talking to me while I'm doing my work. I didn't want to say her name because she would have talked to me. This is the good old-fashioned podcast, the longest-standing K-State podcast in the entire universe. That's actually true, I think. I don't know the entire universe.
It's the original K-State sports show.
It really is. We've been doing this since some time ago. Back when I had hair. Truth. That's a long time ago. This is what we do. We take our questions from our subscribers at Wabash Station. If you're not subscribing and your life feels empty, there's a simple solution. Subscribe to GoPowercat.com. You get to ask questions. You get all the chat back and forth. Great K-State fans, a wonderful message board community. And then we do this podcast where they ask us the questions and we answer and everyone gets to listen. But you only get to listen. That's it. I don't really know what that meant, Gills. Let's get going. Oh, what happened here? I'm doing weird stuff, man. They've added a bunch of bells and whistles here that I don't know. Here we go. First one. Mountain Dew Cat. What do you think is the current state of the program?
Does that purple look different?
Yeah, what's going on with that? Who changed my purple?
Looks very bright, just like the football field.
Style. Yeah, someone went in here and changed my foot. This is what a nerd is. I need to know a hex code.
There you go.
When in doubt, blame Gills.
Yeah, it was all Gills. Let's go with that. Now it's the right color. Mountain Dew Cat 74. What do you think the current state of the program is? You know what? In the current state of college football, I don't think you're ever as bad as you think you are or as good as you think you are. It's hard to sustain anything in the NIL transfer portal environment. And also, if you're bad or not good enough, you can get there without having to wait to develop recruits. There's now a hack, a shortcut, the Texas Tech rule. You get a billionaire donor, you can buy yourself success. I'm not saying that as an insult. That's pretty damn cool. That's pretty cool. Now, that the powers that be know someone can climb up there and get it done just by spending some money. Now, look, I'm not saying K-State has that donor because I don't think the university does. But if you play your cards right, you can reload. You could lose a bunch of talent in the portal. I don't know. I think we all project that might be happening, but we'll talk about that later. And you can turn around then and go into the portal and reload. Maybe with not as known players, not as the headline turners, but dudes that'll win games. So no, I don't think it's in good state this season where they're at. But it doesn't mean it has to be lasting. Look at Utah. I mean, they stunk last year. Some things went wrong, including an injured quarterback, but there was more to it than that. And now they're one of the better teams in the Big 12, if not the second best behind Tech. So no, be patient. Maybe this isn't the season you expected, but it doesn't have to be the future. Now, most of the time when that future's changed, it's not just the portal. There's other changes to the coaching staff or other things, and we'll see if that takes place. Jon Grove, you're up.
I was on mute for a second. Goodness gracious, I'm kind of all over the place. But, it's kind of odd and bizarre in saying that K-State right now is 2-4, and we could be staring down the road in which K-State has to win 4 out of her next 6 games to even be bowl eligible, which is just bizarre to say the very least. Yep. I didn't think we'd be saying that towards October. But Harden, a lot of this kind of boils down to several things, but to start off the year was more so of a Harden effort and the passion that several of these guys are playing with. They need some clarity, some accountability, brutal, consistent execution that just hasn't been there through on out the season. And make no mistake, at this point, collapse is just essentially. It could be inevitable depending on what we see from TCU this weekend, how we're able to see what's the mentality going to be from this squad.
Yep.
Believe me, we're not the only ones noticing it. Among those there are just so many growing questions about where this team is heading and where this program is, and those who are in charge and as far as longevity goes, who's ready to face them during several points here in the next few months.
Agreed. Gills?
Real quick with Texas Tech, I love how you bring that up, because Joey McGuire was probably not reluctant to move with the times of the current landscape of college football and the NIL money. And if it's there, you go spend it, right? I understand Mike Gundy didn't have the same amount of NIL money that is available in Lubbock, but Mike Gundy wasn't really eager to adapt to the changes of college football. So Kleiman is, guys, it goes without saying, he's going to have to change his ways a little bit. And that goes from coaching, philosophy, scheme, everything, resources, building your roster. Kleiman is going to have to change his ways, because the way that he won at North Dakota State probably isn't viable now with the players you get and how you get your players to your program. But in Cole Carmody's absence, I feel like I've got an opportunity here to look at this glass half full, and it is only 6 games. And if you want to lump in the way that last season ended, that's totally fair. Kansas State's, what would it be? I guess last 9, 10, 11 games have been pretty bad. I mean, there is no denying that. But as a whole, on the flip side, 2024 was still a successful season, right? The ending wasn't good, but if you take a step back and look at it as a whole, Kansas State went to the Rate Bowl, did win, had some, I guess you can look at Colorado, was a big win. I understand K-State didn't have any wins in the Big 12 over teams that finished above 500, but overall 2024 wasn't bad. You think it was bad because of the way that it ended, but if Kansas State had started, 1-3 last year, and surged towards the end of the year, there'd be way much more optimism heading into this season. So what I'm getting at here is this 6-game sample size has not been good, but there are still 6 games left. So the state of the program right now is not good. I'm sure Chris Kleiman's leash is not getting any longer as each day goes on, but you do look at I think the last 2 games, guys, is on coaching. We're not complaining about the efforts of the guys. The first 4 games, it was kind of the opposite. Coaching wasn't great in Dublin, wasn't great against Army. You can go down that road, but the players were not playing to the standard of Kansas State football. We talked about that a lot with some of our former players on the Insiders. So you can get the coaching corrected. You can get the players corrected. This season can be fixed. Kleiman, if he's willing to adapt and change. Guys, who's to say he can't be around in Manhattan for 5 more years if things change? If things don't change, Kleiman's not going to be around much longer. So long-winded answer. I think there's glass half full, half empty approaches you can take.
Let me correct one thing. I don't even think he has a leash right now. You said shorter leash. Gene Taylor's not going to fire him.
Okay.
I think if they end up 2-10, Gene Taylor won't fire him. Now there might be a retirement, if things go really bad. Again, I've said this before, coaches don't want to go out on a bad note. They're competitors. Then they don't want to go out on a good note because they're competitors. So we'll see how it plays out. But I know Chris Kleiman has always said he's not going to stick around for the long haul. He's not going to be an aging coach. And ironically, the game's changed so much. A man in his 50s is an aging coach because you got to keep up. And Joey McGuire has done that at Tech. It certainly helps when you got a Cody Campbell that's saying, hey, I got $1 billion. Let's have some fun with it. But they didn't just spend money, guys. They went out and spent it wisely. on the kind of players physically and mentally that they needed. That's the hard part. It's finding the guys that will have the buy-in, and you're not buying someone else's problems that have departed. I hate this question, Gills. I hate it. Over under 2.5 of these players on KSU's roster next season: Avery Johnson, Dylan Edwards, Jace Brown, Lincoln Cure, Austin Romaine. That is STZ 318. I've already said I'm not going to talk about the portal until it's later, but in a vague sense, at this snapshot in time, at this moment, I'd say over.
I have to go under, and I don't want to give exact names. And
hold on, I did that wrong. I have to go under. Okay, yeah.
So that are back next season.
Yes.
Leave over.
I read that as who's going into the portal, not as who's
right.
back. Yeah, I'm going to go with the under. I think 2 or fewer of those guys would be back at this moment without picking names.
Yeah, I think Austin Romaine doesn't have a glaring reason to leave. Maybe NFL if he's hearing some things, which I would doubt, but that would be the only thing for him. But Lincoln's not getting the usage. Avery, things have not worked out. Dylan's just not been on the field consistently. Jace Brown had rumors of him leaving last year and may think in his mind, or his camp might think, there's NFL potential. So I think there's one that I feel pretty good about in Romaine, and then those other 4, you can easily write that story of they left for this or that reason.
John?
Not to mention as well, Gills, you brought up just the usage as far as several of these guys. And Avery Johnson, this is now, I believe, he's under a 3rd offensive coordinator in the last 3 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So he's already been dealing with so much turmoil as far as the offensive transitions go. I'm not saying that all these transitions were bad. I mean, Connor Riley left for the Cowboys, and Colin Klein left for Texas A&M and got some additional cash out of it. But you just kind of look at some point down the road, you're just thinking to yourself, how much longer am I going to continue adjusting under several of these new coaching philosophies at the same school? Sometimes it doesn't really pan out for several of these quarterbacks. And, for a brief moment during the season, I just kind of stared at Avery Johnson, and he's kind of built as a West Coast quarterback in some aspects, knowing that he'll mainly rely on his mobility, but he's not afraid to take the punches. And I don't think necessarily that is the kind of quarterback identity for Kansas State that's been there for the long haul. You want to talk about guys like Will Howard and Jake Waters, Colin Klein back in the day. They weren't afraid to take several of those hits, and perhaps maybe against UCF, they brought in Blake Barnett to kind of give a little bit of a philosophical approach or a psychotic approach in which, hey, you got to take the hits, man. You got to take the hits.
Yep.
At this point of the season, it is. I mean, you essentially got nothing to lose, and I don't think Avery Johnson to this point has really leveled himself to anything NFL draft stock quarterback wise to really prove that. So. Yep. I think that'll be kind of more so in the question, but I do agree. Dylan Edwards, Lincoln Cure, both of which have been heavily underused, especially Lincoln Cure. I've been really disappointed with the tight end room so far throughout this year, aside from Garrett Oakley. The production has just dropped off in many ways, and I was one of the few that thought that the tight ends room would not skip a heartbeat, because you got all those guys back, and perhaps maybe the coaching staff perhaps might have had some minor changes, but it didn't seem all that bad. But I don't know. Things are just not looking too pretty from that position there, and I don't know how that's going to shake out there as well. But perhaps, yeah. I was rambling on there for way too long. Goodness gracious.
Can we circle back to real quick something John said in the beginning? We had a really good question. I do the post game mailbag on the site after every game. And if Avery Johnson is to be back next year, would you rather have Matt Wells, which I know that things haven't been going well with the offensive coordinator, or a new offensive coordinator, but it would be Avery's 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years, right?
Well, it's going to be that either way, unless Wells stays. I mean, if you have a coordinator change, it'll be his 4th, but if he transfers, it'll be his 4th.
Yeah, it's okay. Didn't think of that angle. That's a damn good question, right? There's no easy solution here, no matter what.
I ask you this question, listeners, viewers. If this team goes 4-8, worse, does it matter? I mean, honestly, yeah, these are really talented players. Don't get me wrong. And maybe they just don't have enough around them, or maybe they don't have the it. But in an explanation of the state of current college football, if a bunch of those guys leave, you know what just happened? Yeah, you lost some really good players. You just freed up your salary cap. A lot of money just went back into the bin to go get some dudes to pull a Texas Tech to a smaller degree. So that's what I like about college football now is you do have a chance to reinvent yourself in a way you never did before. You had to build, and the hack was a brief period of time that Bill Snyder used junior college players. That was a good hack. That worked. Games changed for the better or for the worse. We'll see what happens.
And pro sports teams will ship guys out.
Yeah.
Just to free up cap space. I'm not saying K-State's going to get rid of these guys just for money, but pro sports teams do that.
Well, it comes down to this. Whether you're getting paid $10, $10,000, or $1 million, are you worth the price? That's the equation the NFL does all the time. We're not getting our return. We're going to get rid of you. I don't know what the numbers are, nor do I deserve to know what the numbers are for each of these players. But inside that facility, they can ask that question. Are we getting a good return on this investment? Because those dudes you listed probably have a vast plurality, if not a majority, of the NIL money for K-State football. We'll go next one up. Mr. Tossback. Kleiman in his presser said your elite players need to make plays in one-score games. Then please explain the personnel grouping on the third and goal.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I can't.
Real quick here, John, you did this on Upon Further Review. That'll be up on the site by the time you're listening. Give us the names.
Oh, geez. Where do I
remember?
So
well, it was Devon Rice, Isaac Cook.
You got Isaac Cook at wide receiver. Dylan was not on the field. Joe Jackson, who was playing some of his best football, wasn't on the field. Jaron Tibbs and Jace Brown weren't in there either. Instead, K-State was lined up with Devon Rice in the backfield. You got Isaac Cook, who, full disclosure, and I'll be as guilty as anyone who would admit this too, but I didn't really heard much about him until a few weeks ago. But you also had another tight end that's been underperforming in Braden Lofton as well. And even Blake Barnett, I believe, was running a route out in the backfield on what was supposed to be the quote I termed as the gotta have a play, and to really seal the fate of the Baylor Bears. And to make matters worse, I mean, the instructions before the snap, it was clear as mud. I mean, it seems so obvious as well. If nothing's open there for Avery, just hand the ball off, or just slide, take a small off, and keep the clock moving and force Baylor to call a timeout. Right?
Guys, so I didn't realize it was that bad in terms of personnel. I had no idea it was that bad.
It was really bad.
That is utterly ridiculous, stupid, asinine. What in the serious hell? No wonder Baylor looked like they knew the play. There was only one play to run with that personnel. If it's not going to be a running play, which they were scared to do for whatever reason that can be explained away by we did everything right except what we did wrong. I'm more mad now than I was before.
Oh boy.
What in the hell are you doing with that personnel grouping at that moment of the game? At the very least, put your experienced guys on the field that know the importance of making the play, or at least you hope so. Good Lord.
Yeah, I know people tune in here. You know, KNet asks the question. We're supposed to answer it. I don't think there's any explanation or
no explanation for
defending this at all.
I mean, it shows on the field. just with the lineup on its own.
I'm going to go to the next question because I'm going to say bad words. Go stay Kate. Go stay. I got it now. Okay. Is the football team going through the exact same thing as the basketball team last year? You know what? I don't think you can compare football and basketball in this current environment in any way. The way you use NIL, the way you construct a roster is totally different in basketball. I mean, each mistake is magnified 5, 6, 7 times in basketball. And each guy that comes through is magnified in a similar way. But there is something missing from this team that goes beyond the explanation of they're just not good enough. I've recorded, as we tape this, I've recorded tomorrow's daily delivery already. And as you watch this, it's already up on the site and YouTube. You are what your record says you are. There's a reason why you're 2-4. And that isn't just because talent. And it is what it is. You've earned that record no matter how close the games are. And I didn't feel like last year's basketball team was even near being competitive. This team should be. It's not. Because they're 2-4. They earned that record. But they're there. They just don't have whatever that is.
Yeah, if you gave Jerome Tang truth serum, he would tell you that I think early on last year they knew it wasn't really.
They knew. They
didn't get the right group of guys. I don't want to label anybody specifically, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out who bad apple, for lack of a better term, maybe on that team was. But you know, Chris Kleiman and his coaching staff guys, like, I don't think they were crazy, or I don't think we were crazy as media members or your fan, whatever. Nobody was crazy for thinking this team could make a run for the Big 12, right? Look at what Vegas thought. The people that are a lot smarter than us in terms of looking at the whole conference as a whole and who the best teams really might be. There was real tangible optimism for this team. And I think even after losing to Iowa State, there was no reason to jump off ship, and then you come back to Manhattan and play the way you did. Then it was kind of became clear that, okay, there are some problems. But no, I understand the question here, Goes to Kate. I do. But yeah, basketball, I think from the get-go, maybe even before the first game was played, I mean, there were some problems. And frustrating part, of course, K-State had a 6-game winning streak in conference play and hoops and did show some really good things despite the issues that the season had. Kansas State football, guys, what have we seen that's been good? I mean, a win over a bad UCF team, that's all you have to show for your season through 6 games?
Yeah. Did you just predict a 6-game winning streak in the conference for K-State football?
Well, 6 games in basketball is basically 1 in football, so no.
Yeah. Jon Grove.
I would think of it as more as probably 2 football games. If I had to go that way, maybe 3 if I'm being generous. I don't know about 1. I'd be more like, I don't know. I'm not a math major. Not an.
Neither am I.
No.
Yeah, we're not the sharpest tools in the shed, to say the very least, especially Gills. But I
love that he's bought into this. I love it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Against Arizona, there were just a few moments that you're able to see the emotion from several of the guys on K-State's roster, not just from the top down, but you're seeing some of the youngest guys that are starting to see some more playing time. With Logan Bartley, he was called for targeting Trey Spivey, and in hindsight, I didn't realize it was Trey Spivey that got hit, and hopefully, I don't think anything serious came out of it, but he was bringing the fire. He was bringing the energy. Yep. You're seeing Ryan Davis coming up with some late heads too, but they were bringing so much energy. And then you saw UCF, and it looked as if it was a completely different K-State team as far as wanting to play football, wanting to represent Kansas State and wanting to play in front of a home crowd. And in some retrospects, like the KU game last year in basketball, I was seeing that a little bit too, but after the road trip in Utah, things have just completely died off. And when they played Arizona State, when they came out of a tunnel in Bramlage Coliseum, they looked As far as visionary goes, it just did not appear to be a team that wanted to be there on that specific day. And to Jerome Tang's credit, he has found out he's magnified. Well, as you said, Fitz, he's kind of magnified several of those problems. Whereas in football, it's a lot more expanded upon. You're not dealing with just 10 or 13 guys on the roster. You're dealing with how many players? I mean, you got 74 for a road game. That's still so many, and near 90, 100. I'm terrible at keeping up with roster numbers these days. Give me a break. But it's simply a little bit. It's a lot more simple to identify some of those problems for some of the sports that don't require too many players. Whereas for football, it's kind of all over the place, to say the very least.
Are you jumping on, Fitz, to the next question?
Uh-huh.
I was going to put a bow on this real quick with basketball last season. I know Jerome Tang maybe isn't the most popular man in Manhattan right now, and I get it. Back-to-back misses on the big dance. Sure. Kansas State's struggles were not because of coaching. You can blame the coach for the roster he put together, but Kansas State wasn't getting out-coached in most of those games last year. It was the players on the court that just weren't really performing, especially this last game against Baylor. Coaching was really the reason Kansas State lost that game. So another reason why I say no, not the same thing that basketball went through last year.
Very good. Speaking of basketball, let's do a basketball question. El Camino Cat, PJ Haggerty recently had a comment stating that him, Nate Johnson, and Abdi Bashir will probably be the best backcourt in the country. What are your thoughts on this comment? Optimistic. El Camino, I'm going to totally Bill Snyder this answer. I'm not familiar with every backcourt in the country, so I can't judge that. But I'll say this. We heard optimistic things the last 2 years heading in. But you could also, particularly in hindsight, catch the indicators of trouble. We don't have a leader. We got someone to step up. And the fact that Jerome Tang and Doug McDaniel were going head to head, and all of a sudden they resolved it basically by Jerome Tang giving in. It helped the team, but I don't think it helps at all when a player basically cries and gets his way. Sets a tone. We are hearing not optimistic things. We are hearing very positive things about this group of players.
Yep.
The kind of things, coaches will tell you stuff off the record, or they'll tell other people that, and you'll hear about that. So it's not like set information that it's true, but all we're hearing is the coaches are saying, we are so much better. These guys are so much more bought in. And I got to say that I think the addition of two older coaches who have been around the block and have done their thing, particularly Coach Driscoll, is really going to help this program. They had too much emphasis on recruiters over coaches. And I think that they've got a good mix here. One more thing. I think Jerome Tang, again, little coded message there when he talked about his European players that have come in, know how to prepare for a season and games like professionals, because at the club level, you essentially are. Club level, you're playing with older guys who are making a living. So you get that. That was completely missing last year. The preparations for games, you could tell by the product on the court.
Yeah, and even Jerome Tang, even if the overseas guys weren't ready to be professionals or buy in the way they need to, at least Jerome Tang learned from last year that just because a guy's getting multiple millions of dollars in NIL, that does not mean he is going to treat it like a job, right? You still have to push them each and every day. You can't just expect them to do that. But my first real initial thought on the comment is, damn, Abdi Bashir must be a lot better defender than he was, right? Like that's the first thing that came to my mind when I looked at this question. Nate Johnson's going to see the floor a lot. Abdi Bashir, for his offensive, ceiling potential, deserves a lot of minutes, but if you look at his defensive numbers, he was one of the worst defenders last year in all of college basketball. So, yeah, scoring the basketball, putting the ball through the net, this trio can be lethal, but Bashir is going to have to prove himself that he is not a liability on the court.
Yeah.
Now, Kostic, right? He wasn't mentioned in Haggerty's comments. We'll see if he starts or comes off the bench, but he's offensively lethal too, or potentially lethal as well. So, I know they're really excited about these three guys listed here in the question, but Kostic, I mean, you've heard so many great things about his potential and what he can be in the future. You might not see that game in and game out in year number 1 in Manhattan, but just his overall trajectory in basketball, I know a lot of people think he's got NBA potential, right? Potential draft lottery pick potential. So yeah, I mean, Fitz, you really did nail it on the head, though. I mean, Jerome Tang is going to say the right things and be positive and optimistic around his program. But what he said, that was, I guess, 2 weeks ago in that press conference we had a nice facility where he just talked to us about the season, right? I think he's more, I don't want to say genuine, but he's more, I think this is more real, and he's really, really, truly excited about this group that he has built together for a group that needs to get back to the NCAA tournament. And you've got David Castillo and Moby back and Taj, but I mean, there's a reason that most of the guys did not come back. I don't want to say they got ran off, but this is a much better locker room than Kansas State had 365 days ago. 1,000%.
John.
And Gills, you're talking about just a better locker room. You're talking about guys that are committed to the bid as well, right? PJ Haggerty, perhaps I might be overanalyzing some of these short videos that came out of Shark Week, but from what I've seen, PJ Haggerty, he's one of those guys as far as the first in, last out mentality, right? He's clocking in, he's putting in a lot of hard work in these drills, whether it's directly basketball, if it's conditioning and running, he seems to be the first guy at the finish line, just about everything. And this was a player that K-State brought in by saying, hey, we want you to be a leader. We want you to help lead this team as well. I also think, in my opinion, just kind of analyzing several of these guys, I think we might be looking at the closest college basketball player to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm not saying that he will be the next Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but I think we're maybe looking at a refined version. I think he can score from long. He can create off the dribble, get to the foul line, probably better than any other guard in the country. As far as several of the other guys that were mentioned, I'm more excited about Nate Johnson than anyone. I think Nate Johnson, he's a Desi Sills type of player, but I think a little bit more transcendent in the terms of he's going to not only is he going to be kind of a spark plug in games, but he's going to defend the other team's best guard night in and night out. And he's one of the best defenders throughout the country and probably capable of being an all-American defender level at several guard spots. But he can also score. He can facilitate and take some pressure off of guys like Abdi Bashir, PJ Haggerty, possibly Andre Kostic. First team all-conference MAC player as well. So we'll see what happens. And Gills has already rattled up everything with Abdi Bashir. We'll see if he's able to improve on the defensive end, but he takes a lot of shots too. And knowing that you got an offensive coach like Matthew Driscoll now, who's able to help adjust the shooting fundamentals as well. I'm guilty as anyone is saying this, but I'm kind of buying into it. And maybe I did last year as well. I think several other people have as well.
Yep. Okay. So in hindsight, let's be honest. We look back at last year's team, and they were relying on Doug McDaniel, who'd never been consistent as a performer or as a person. On or off the court, there's no consistency to the young man. And Coleman Hawkins, who we were told was ready to step up and be an alpha. That dude ain't an alpha. He's never going to be an alpha. And if they really thought that was going to happen, that's concerning. But in hindsight now, you look at his press conferences the last 2 years and going back 2 seasons, I remember thinking he's being more guarded here because of what happened off the court with that whole flare up. But I don't think it was that, Gills. I think it was last year and the year before, he knew he didn't have the dudes. He was being guarded because he was trying to figure out how to say this without just trashing them, trying to be positive, offer his team positivity, while realizing, I don't know if I can get this team anywhere close to where my first team was. This year's different. I think he feels this team might have the dudes. And we're going to find out. Because as a football team, you will be what your record says you are.
Yeah.
And they need to go start winning and winning quickly and early. And they have more tools. They have more talent. But they have more leadership. They have more leadership from their locker room. And that's always an essential ingredient to any success of any team. Good enough?
Chris Kleiman on Monday said he's not going to throw anybody under the bus. He's going to take the bullets, right? Was what he said?
Yeah.
And Jerome Tang, right? Last year, he's not going to just crap on these guys. So, yes. But this, from now, we're recording this in the beginning of October. Things have to go smoothly for the next month or two, right? You can't have Naquan Tomlin that thing happen again.
Yep.
The Chor situation, that can't happen again. And that's ultimately on Jerome Tang and his staff for bringing in, maybe not Naquan, but they brought him in. They brought a Chor in. So you have to bring in the right guys. And I don't want to just single out Naquan Tomlin and a Chor, but I mean, I don't want to say it could have happened to anybody on last year's roster, but I think the likelihood of anything like that happening now is very low with what we're hearing about these players. You know, never say never, but the last couple of seasons were just destined for failure with those instances that happened. And we'll wait and see, but it feels like this group is much more polished in that regard.
Okay. We've got a 2-minute drill question here. The point here is all of us are going to sum up our answer as a combined 2 minutes. I don't know if that's possible. Here we go. Fervent Purple. In the presser, Chris Kleiman said that Baylor is a tough place to play. Didn't look like it on TV. Can you explain? I will. Chris Kleiman isn't, as Gills just pointed out, going to go into a press conference and insult a player, a coach, an opposing coach, opposing player, or an opposing field. He is going to give them respect. Now, behind the scenes, he might have said, guys, we should have won that. That wasn't intimidating at all, because it wasn't. As a Big 12 guy, I was incredibly disappointed in Baylor fans. That was a horrible turnout. And no, I think he's just saying stuff now because he doesn't want to say anything negative. But trust me, he knows there's negatives, and he probably knows they had an opportunity to win a road game and they just didn't do it. John.
It's kind of interesting. My dad told me at one point that Baylor, it's not necessarily one of the biggest cities in the state of Texas, but it's still big enough where you're able to kind of find those fans and still fill up McLean Stadium or even Floyd Casey Stadium back in the past, but it hasn't come into fruition. I don't know what it is right now with K-State football losing in several of these small stadiums either. I mean, you with no crowd as well. You lose to Arizona a few weeks ago. You lose to Houston last year in a monsoon, and nobody for probably more K-State fans at Houston last year for all I care, but it's been frustrating, especially when you're up by 2 scores. You got to push your pedal to the metal and make everyone else quiet in that stadium, and it just didn't happen.
Gills.
For those that don't know, Ryan Gilbert flew in, arrived in Waco about 9:30 a.m., got to the stadium just in time, running off 2 hours of sleep, maybe. I needed something to wake me up, and McLean Stadium did not wake me up.
Me making fun of you woke you up.
Big B woke me up. Just Big B's loving presence in the press box woke Ryan Gilbert up. It absolutely woke me up.
It was not intimidating. It's not a hard place to play when it's that way. But Chris Kleiman's not going to say, Yeah, the crowd sucked and we should have won. That wasn't an environment at all. That's not who he is, folks. Quit reading so much into some of these answers that he's being overly positive or whatever. He's not going to trash anyone in a press conference. Now, he will vaguely say we didn't tackle well, didn't block well, we got to do this, got to do that. That's not throwing your players under the bus. Folks, that's talking football. But flat out calling out a player, I haven't seen him do it. I don't remember it. Maybe he has. And boy, I know he probably wanted to, but he hadn't done it. And he won't. He won't. And he won't. No matter how much he might be mad about something that a coach did in the course of the game, he's not going to go to a press conference and tell the public or the media that so-and-so's got to do a better job or I'm going to fire him. It's not who he is. Quit reading too much into some of these press conferences. He's struggling to be positive, and it's obvious. Good enough, boys? That's it. That's it for the PowerCat Podcast. Jon Grove, thank you for joining us. Ryan Gilbert, it was actually good to see you.
Get out of here.
Was it?
Come on, man. I'm trying to say nice stuff. Yes,
I know you're not being genuine.
I'm genuinely saying goodbye. We'll talk to you next week. Actually, we got the K-State pregame show. We got the walkthrough. We got so much coming. Big game at the Bill. We'll see you there.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.